Superman 3 may be the worst Superman movie of them all. Now, this is a bold statement when you consider that this franchise has seen the likes of Superman 4 and Batman vs. Superman.
Why did you say that name?
But the more I think about it, the more I think it may be a true statement. No other movie in the series feels like it's a never-ending series of questions, all of which start and end with why the f*** did they do that? But am I exaggerating? Does Superman 3 have some things to admire? Well, that's what I'll analyze in this video as I look at 3 things that Superman 3 did well as 3 things it did pretty poorly. This is the good and the bad in Superman 3. And I bet a lot of you were expecting Richard Pryor as weakness number 1, and yes, he is an issue, but weakness number 1 is broader than just an individual character. It's that nothing in this movie feels important. There's no urgency, no momentum. There's a pervasive sense that this movie has nothing that it's building up to. And that shows up in the first scene of the movie, which coincidentally does have Richard Pryor in it.
I'm not the fault.
But a superhero prologue can still work with a character like Gus Gorman. It just needs an energetic hook or a reason to exist. Instead, we get 2.5 minutes of this.
Do you know what you are?
Don't call me a bum. I'm not a bum.
That's basically the entire dynamic of this scene, and there's no actual hook here, even though this matchbook thinks it is. And there sure as hell is nothing to hook you in the opening credits. Like, this is energetic in a way that the opening scene with Gus wasn't. But who in their right mind wants to watch a full 5 minutes of Three Stooges nonsense? This is such a perplexing intro, but when you think about the awkward humor Richard Lester injected into his portions of Superman 2, it starts to make sense. But that doesn't mean it's good. In fact, it's awful. And these credits feel more like a waste of time when the plot drags its feet in getting started. Yes, we see Gus learning computers, we see him show that he's a genius, and we see him beginning to commit financial fraud on his company. But Superman 3 does a terrible job of making you realize why any of this is important. Like, you could have rolled up Gus's first 3 or 4 scenes into one bigger scene, or even shorter scene, and it would have accomplished just as much. Like, did we actually need to hear Gus Gorman learn about taxes for the first time in his life somehow?
State tax, federal tax, social security tax.
For a plot to drag out this long with no hook, it should at least be worthy of a Superman movie, but A Day in the Life of Gus Gorman is not meeting that threshold. Eventually, Ross Webster kicks off a blasé plan about controlling the weather with a satellite using Gus, all while providing exposition on his boilerplate background and his dull motivations. But we'd already spent ungodly amounts of time with Gus Gorman. We needed to get to the point, but this movie doesn't know when to get to a point, and it doesn't know when to slow down and actually let an important character like Clark freaking Kent be the focus. The scene in the Daily Planet where he explains why he's going to Smallville is so utterly fragmented.
Mr. White.
53!
Story would be about, Mr. White, is how much...
33!
Can I really go back to Middle America after having become a metropolis sophisticate?
That is a really funny moment with great reactions, but with all the distractions going on before that line, everything else gets lost in the shuffle. And that speaks to Superman 3's fundamental lack of understanding when it comes to what the audience would want out of this movie. We do get a pretty decent Superman scene where he puts out this chemical fire, but it happens at a point where the plot hasn't kicked in yet. Exciting stuff is exciting, but when you're 15 minutes in and don't really have a grasp on why anything is happening, it's hard to get overly worked up by Superman acting like the world's most powerful OSHA inspector. Things do pick up once Clark gets to Smallville and reunites with Lana Lang, but as beautiful as Annette O'Toole is, she can't hide the fact that there is no driving narrative here. This all feels very low stakes.
You never got married?
Well, No, not.
Unfortunately, that's the only time that Clark's relationship with Lois is referenced besides this amusing sight gag, and by disconnecting from the emotional arc of previous movies, his relationship with Lana doesn't truly feel substantial. But I will say the stuff in Smallville does have its share of charm. It may not be able to carry the movie because it's definitively a side plot, but Clark in Smallville is strength number 1 to Superman 3. I just adore Lana and Clark's relationship here, partly because I had a crush on Annette O'Toole at one point, but also because while Lois Lane had a thing for Superman, Lana is very definitively into Clark Kent, which leads to some of the best work Christopher Reeve does in the series, where Clark is still silly, but it's a natural part of his personality rather than being used as a cover.
Boy, this pate is really unusual.
Oh, Clark, that's Buster's dog food.
Good.
Don't eat it!
What time does the dog eat?
What I like about this isn't Clark being dumb or an imbecile like he is in the first 2 movies where he's trying to hide his secret identity. This is Clark being goofy and funny to try to charm Lana, to flirt with her. Though maybe he goes a bit far by showing obvious superpowers to the general public when trying to protect Lana's son from sucking at bowling. Not really sure why he does this other than Clark was starting to feel like Superman was getting forgotten. The lack of Superman during the first hour of the movie is weakness number 2. His first 2 appearances are this 15-second cameo that doesn't really count, and then the chemical plant fire, which while fun, doesn't move the plot one way or the other. And then his 3rd appearance is really scraping the bottom of the barrel when it comes to rescues, as Superman saves Ricky from being run over, because if he was bad at bowling, he's worse at playing with dogs. There are no real stakes at all, and it all just feels like the movie trying to desperately remind us that this is a Superman movie while the focus is on Gus Gorman. I think Gus gets more screen time in this one scene than Superman does in that entire first hour. And it's just a bunch of Richard Pryor acting drunk, then actually being drunk, then some completely unnecessary and cringeworthy physical comedy, all to get to Gus using Webster's satellite to create a tornado in Colombia. But then an already long Supermanless scene that couldn't get to the point gets even longer and more pointless and even more Supermanless with moments of brilliance like this. Thankfully, the end result of this garbage scene is this fantastic scene where Superman takes out Webster's tornado, but I don't think I could describe it and do it justice. Let me let Gus Gorman do it.
His cape was flapping in the wind. He was flying. He was great.
Wow, so not only is Superman hardly in the first hour, but a conceptually awesome sequence of Superman stopping a tornado is reduced to Richard Pryor acting it out? And that's bad enough, but this scene somehow is capped off by Gus Gorman surviving falling off a skyscraper because he's wearing skis and a tablecloth. The lack of Superman hurts Superman 3, but it's damn right crippling when Superman is replaced by things that are this nonsensical. Now I know you're all probably thinking, what about evil Superman? He's still coming and he's a big part of this movie. You haven't mentioned him. Couple problems with that. By having barely any Superman before he turns evil, the audience, especially those new to the series, hardly get a chance to see Superman as the beacon of good that he's supposed to be. I mean, he has like maybe 10 lines in the first hour, and he spends much of it either barking out orders,
You gotta get that fire out in the east wing, otherwise you're gonna have a cloud of acid all over the eastern seaboard.
or during the scene where he rescues Ricky from the farm thresher, he gives the farmer the dirtiest look possible. And for what? For apparently not checking this massive 50-acre field for a small boy who sucks at bowling and playing with dogs? Now obviously I'm somewhat joking, but I think Superman 3 needed some genuine contrast between good and evil Superman, which somehow this movie completely blows. And the other issue with this evil Superman shtick is there needed to be some repercussions for Clark Kent, but his Smallville trip feels totally disconnected from everything after that. Like he goes from being on that picnic with Lana in Smallville to abruptly being back in Metropolis with no fanfare. Clark doesn't have a fully fleshed out arc, because Superman 3 doesn't have the guts to put him and Lana into a relationship because Lois still exists, and it also doesn't have the guts to have Clark or Superman have to deal with the ramifications of scenes like this one, where he lets a truck driver die because he wants to get laid.
It's unusual finding a good-looking girl like you alone like this.
Are you sure you shouldn't do something about the bridge?
What bridge?
This is the best scene in the movie in my opinion. It's so chilling. We'd already seen Clark on a date with Lana where he was super charming and super sweet, and now we see Superman with Lana, and it's like an eerie reflection of that scene, because Superman is not sweet or charming here, he's incredibly predatory, and a better movie would make Superman turning evil actually mean something. And yet, Superman turning into evil Superman is strength number 2 for me in Superman 3. Yes, it's not dramatically satisfying, but watching Christopher Reeve mean mug his way through these scenes is at least memorable and enjoyable in a way that the rest of the movie isn't. He was clearly having a great time.
What are you looking at? Huh?
Now, I do think it was a missed opportunity to not actually make Superman evil and just make him like a petty thug. But this is still really fun. He's just so edgy. He's just like trying so hard to be bad and to prove to everyone how bad he is.
Well, I hope you don't expect me to save you, because I don't do that anymore.
So maybe this could have been darker, but it's so fun. I mean, who doesn't want to see Superman getting wasted and trashing a bar? Which, come to think of it, he did back in Superman 2 when he was good also. Eventually, this all leads to the junkyard battle where Clark separates from Superman and they battle for Superman's soul or something. This doesn't make any logical sense, but I just think that Superman had a massive headache because of stupid Ricky.
Superman, it's me, Ricky. Superman, tell him he won't hurt anybody. Superman, please get better. Superman, you're just in a slump.
No, Ricky, this is not a slump. You were in a slump with your awful bowling. This is a full-on identity crisis for Superman, and Ricky's obnoxious voice is all that is needed to elicit this amazing performance from Christopher Reeve. And then we get the fight between Clark and Superman, and it's cheesy with the whole your turn, my turn thing going on here, but I've always loved the scene, as I'm sure a bunch of you have. On the surface, it looks like a classic case of hope and goodness overcoming evil. But let's not kid ourselves, there's nothing personal about this scene, there are no stakes, and this isn't something about Clark having to give up a part of himself to overcome his darkness, even though the movie seems to symbolize this by having him get his ass kicked until his glasses come off. No, this is just the 1983 version of a spectacle. Still, I get chills here. Man, you can put that music in literally anything and it'll increase it tenfold. And then finally, after what feels like forever, we get an extended sequence of Superman just being Superman. And it's fun, even though Superman fighting a giant supercomputer to the death doesn't feel like a very natural end to this fractured story. But in a movie this unfocused, focusing on goofy action is enough to be strength number 3. There's not a whole lot to talk about here, but for a kid watching this movie in the 90s, so much is memorable. Like Superman dodging missiles that Webster is controlling in a video game for some reason, or this goofy bubble trap, or that one moment where Superman 3 briefly became one of the scariest 80s horror movies to just about every single millennial with a heartbeat. But as fun as all of this is, it's also kind of glaring that much of the scene is Superman just writhing in pain, while Gus Gorman gets to do some heroic stuff. Which maybe that's Gus's character arc. He committed so many crimes throughout this movie. Maybe this is redemption for Gus Gorman, because Superman clearly won't be able to forgive him for all the bullshit he put him through.
Thank you, brother.
I've talked about him plenty in this video, but now it's time to give him the full weakness treatment. Richard Pryor is weakness number 3 in this movie. It's bad enough how out of place he feels. But the fact that Superman is totally fine with Gus in the end with really no justification for why that is a sign that Superman 3 considers itself a Richard Pryor movie more than a Superman movie. I mean, how else can you explain that Gus's character arc involves him being a down-on-his-luck unemployed dude, but Gus is also apparently a master of disguise and infiltration when the plot asks him to be?
A token of our appreciation to show to you for saving us from a chemical plant disaster.
That is clearly kryptonite, but Superman apparently thinks Gus is still a good person. The worst part of Gus Gorman is that he makes no sense as a character, which is why he can do all sorts of criminal things, and yet the script has this exchange between Gus and Superman at the end, and it's totally unironic.
But what's going to happen to Rusty Boston and the other 2 ladies?
Well, they're gonna have to see the police now. It's not your problem anymore.
The fact that Superman is positively beaming over this new friendship with Richard Pryor is insane. I mean, yeah, Gus saved his life from kryptonite, but he also tried to kill him using discount kryptonite. And yet Superman is not taking him to jail. No, he's taking him to give him a job reference.
Say, does your boss have a computer in this operation? Yeah. Well, you tell him he could do a lot worse than to give Gus Gorman here a job.
How? How could he do worse? I mean, this guy will defraud and embezzle his way into bankrupting your company. Plus, I don't think he's all there.
Me and Superman?
My God, the worst sin of Superman 3 is that the movie doesn't even try to be good, which is really strange because even terrible movies at least try to be good. Like Superman 4, budget constraints and production nightmares aside, that movie tries to still be good. Superman 3, though, makes one confounding decision after another, and worse, seems to make those decisions intentionally, which leads to an absolute train wreck of a movie. Whether or not it's the worst Superman movie, I haven't analyzed Superman 4 yet, or the Zack Snyder movies, but I suspect Superman 3 is going to end up at the bottom of the barrel. But to really find that out, I'm going to have to analyze the rest of the Superman movies, which will be coming soon. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and you will get more Superman videos, as I just said in like the last sentence.